Well, it is certainly a pleasure to be with you again in conversation around deep equity and looking at it this time, I think, from a range of perspectives. And so last time we looked and talked with educators, and I am so happy to be here and to talk with community people, because I think one of the things that is important is that community really helps with the overall kind of impact of schooling for our children and youth. Because, schooling happens within community. It is not separate from, it happens within family, within community. And as many times as we try to isolate, I don't think it provides a holistic way of working with our young people. So I thank you for all of the people coming, and I thank you for doing this with me.
Man, no, it's absolutely no problem. When we first brought up the topic for this year, looking at rest, recuperation, and rejuvenation, different from other years, we kind of thought about like looking at the same topic each week, but talking to different folks in different spaces. And so last week we looked at folks who have worked in K through 12 and higher education. This week we get an awesome opportunity of speaking to folks who are on the community side, community-based side, and working intimately and diligently with families and young people. So I'm really excited about our conversation today. And I think what is one of the unique things is we have folks from the West Coast and the East Coast. And so getting to hear about similarities and differences and things like that is always exciting.
I agree. And as I said, I think community is important. And for us in education, whether it's higher education or pre-K through and secondary education, this mix and kind of weaving of school-based work with children as well as community-based. Because as I said, school in community is, important. And so we have to think about kids within their families, within their communities. And we have to think about, that's also true of the adults, that, we live, yes, in the institutions in which we work, but also, we're all addressing family as well as our community, because we want to feel a part of our communities. We want to feel safe in our communities. We want to feel at one with our communities, like we belong. And so I appreciate this opportunity and have always looked forward to working with Tour University in California as well as New York. So that connection is always important, and thank you.
Yeah, so Velma, I know I have Brother Kariga Bailey and Brother Barry Axius online.
Axius,
thank you.
There you go.
But would you like to introduce Brother Michael first, and then I will jump in with my two introductions?
We can do that. I'm also going to ask that at the end of your introductions, if we can just do as I did the last time, a moment so that we can just orient ourselves into our spaces and into a semblance of just calm and reflective practice. And so, but I'm going to start with introducing Michael Mills. He is a transformational leader from New Jersey. And since childhood, he has really had a passion for service and uplifting community. In 2014, he co-founded KIDS, Conscious Youth Development and Service, a nonprofit transforming youth, schools, and communities through holistic practices, facilitating mindfulness, social emotional learning, trauma healing, restorative practices, and resilience building. KIDS has partnered with over 100 schools throughout New Jersey, impacting more than 10,000 youth, 5,000 educators, and thousands of community members. I am pleased because I met Michael actually on the West Coast as we both were doing some work around transformational leadership. And lo and behold, following that, you know how you meet somebody and they stay with you because they resonate in your heart. He joined the Transformative Educational Leadership team as a lead facilitator, as a faculty member, where he supports advancement of educational leaders across the country. And I'm proud about that because I was an alumni of the TEL community. And so, so it's so funny that we are just weaving our relationship together in many, many different ways. So Michael, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you. And I'll turn it over to you, Ijeoma.
Brother Michael, we truly appreciate you being here. I can't wait to hear more from you and about your work. I'll start with Brother Barry because Brother Barry is from the East Coast as well. And so I'm gonna just kind of use that geography to work my way through the introductions. Mr. Barry Axius is the founder and CEO of Voice of the Youth, a nonprofit organization which provides mentorship to youth and adults. Mr. Axius has been guiding and mentoring adolescents of all ages from the Bay Area to the greater Sacramento area for more than a decade. He is also the founder of Black Blueprints, which is an organization dedicated to uplifting and educating Black people through social media, community events, and empowering apparel. Mr. Axius is the co-owner of Hidden Gems Thrift Store and founder of Seriously Delicious Cafe, formerly the VOY Cafe. He is also the co-founder of the Black Friday Coalition. He is one of the founding members of Build Black, an organization dedicated to bringing justice, prosperity, and economic opportunities to Sacramento's African-American community. He is routinely sought after to consult on a wide variety of issues, including social justice, equity in education, and responding to crime scenes. This is in addition to his ongoing programming addressing literacy, domestic violence, sex trafficking, women empowerment, manhood training, and his hands-on approach with mentoring and individual youth counseling. His consistency and unapologetic stance has afforded him the position of a community leader that can be trusted to speak to power on behalf of community he serves. As a motivational speaker, he is able to use his platform to impact real change and increase opportunities for lasting growth and community development. Let me just add to this. You know, one of the most powerful things about him that I've seen is, you know, I was at the mall one day shopping, just doing my due diligence, and I see him, and we get an opportunity to rap for a few minutes. And then he was like, man, I got to catch up with you later because I got to get back to my assignment. I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm here keeping the mall safe by watching our young people and making sure that they're interacting with each other in a safe way. And I think it's really powerful when we talk about community servants, that we talk about individuals who are connected to the community in very intimate ways, right? And not just folks who talk about the work, but actually doing it. And then we got Brother Kariga Bailey, who, as y'all can see, he has on his Hampton shirt today, so he got them connections too. But this is another powerful brother that is doing great work. I want to say throughout Northern California. Brother Kariga Bailey is an angel parent, a social emotional healing practitioner, and an award-winning educator, recording artist, and lead vocalist of Soul Development. He is a nationally renowned peace advocate and the school founder. In addition to his work in education, he is also author of Soul Affirmations, and he is a co-founder and lead facilitator for Be Imaginative, a transformative safe space led by a collective of artists and activists dedicated to disrupting gun violence and healing Black and Brown communities through innovative multidimensional storytelling. Evidence of his work, of which has received national acclaim, can be found in the Emmy Award-winning film, Dear Beloved, Music and Storytelling with Soul Development and Be Imaginative. Our brother Kariga Bailey is also the co-host of the two-time and be-nominated podcast, Soul Affirmations, with his wife, Felicia, on the Black Love Podcast Network. I know our speakers is going to have opportunity to speak here in a moment. We're going to do a quick moment of silence, but I just want to real quickly say it's an honor to have presence with all of you here, and I'm really looking for the conversation. So, Velma, you want to lead us through this
All
moment?
right, thank you. And I am in the company of some wonderful brothers. Thank you so much. I am going, yes, I'm loving this. People are always looking for, where are the brothers? Hey, the brothers are here. So I am happy to be in the room with all of you. Thank you so much. But I just wanted to take a minute to just see if we can orient ourselves to the room, to a feeling of community, a feeling of togetherness, and a spirit of learning and openness for all of us. So at your own pace, would you notice your breathing, your in-breath, your out-breath? And I invite you to take 3 deep cleaning breaths. And as you bring your breathing back to its normal rhythm, take another deep breath, and on the exhale, have a sigh of relief. Thank you so much. So Ijeoma, throw out that first question.
Oh my God. I don't even know where to begin. But let me just begin with the topic. We just read your bios. All 3 of you are doing amazing work, and I definitely want you to be able to speak to the work that you are doing. But the most obvious question is, how y'all finding rest? Because it's not even like y'all doing just one thing. Y'all doing multiple things on top of multiple things, and they all heavy lifts. So how y'all are able to find rest among all the different things that you're doing, traveling, like y'all active out here. So how are you finding rest in your work? And there's no particular order, just however you want to answer.
Peace, peace, peace. Peace and love, beloved community. I'm excited to be here. Let me first share that. And this is definitely a lift for me. I find so much from being amongst like-hearted and like-minded folk, and it's just beautiful to be in this company. And this has lifted me up. But to answer that question directly, I find that rest finds me. And and when rest knocks, I answer. And I'm very intentional about my schedule. Right. And I schedule my rest. I schedule time for myself and finding that time. I have 2 planners. I have one for the work and the things I'm doing outwardly. And I have another one for what I'm doing inwardly. And that schedule is just as important as the other one. So I schedule my time, all my self-love, self-compassion, self-care gets scheduled. And I find that rest is probably my biggest priority, beginning with a night's rest and finding that time to just settle in, because as I wake up, I'm reminded of how I go to sleep too, is just as important. And so just finding that rest and that priority of rest is definitely my go-to. It all starts with my schedule.
Brother Michael Mills, I appreciate your joy and honesty as you reflect on the space. I elected not to speak first because I am in pursuit of that practice. I think that rest or whatever we are committed to for sustainability requires a reframe. Every moment isn't the same, and you do have to pivot. So namely, one, I am pivoting to the ever-changing landscape of a now 23-month-old as of yesterday. Okay. And she is expanding every part of me in the most beautiful ways. And I remember when I thought that I would not be able to have the impact or sustain the impact that my wife and I are able to do outside of the home around all the projections of what we thought parenthood would be. But what I can find is that Kamali, our daughter, she causes me to redefine what is available and maximize on what is available to community impact as well as her. But in the most recent of landscapes, my wife is experiencing COVID right now, right? So this is just a very on time, like coming to the habits of mine around rest. I am trying to take care of me, take care of her, and take care of our daughter. And I think that today's space is going to help me recall and remember the practices that have led me thus far, embed new practices, and remember what is sacred. How do I create that reframe? So then when you opened up and asked us to do the breathing exercise, I did it with fidelity, right? I didn't do it like it was just an item on the agenda. I know that, Michael, when you said rest finds you, whenever somebody invites me to take a deep breath, I do so, right? So thank you for that reminder. Thank you for that invitation. But yeah, I'm looking forward to co-investigating the practice of rest and sustainability.
Peace, family. How y'all doing? Good to share space with my people. What's up with my brother? And hi, what's going on, King? Peace and love. Um, the ability to rest in this kind of work when you're so often on demand is a difficult task. I find myself, even in moments of rest periods, still picking up my phone. If it's a time where I'm needed, still checking in. I think I find most of my time resting when I am taking space all by myself when I get home. When I was able to purchase a new home, giving me more space, I think that because it's such a nuance and it's still a new thing for me, that it makes me want to reflect more on my home and kind of get away from everything. But the unfortunate task that a lot of us have, and in this work, when you're needed in such a way where our systems have been so broken that a call for heroship, I'll say, for heroes in our community to really be stand up. Sometimes, that rest, it has to wait. And I'm okay with that because I know as I find my line and as I go and turn the time of sand, I'll eventually won't be in this position to do the work. As I'm training other young people to be the ones to take the torch, then I can have more of a moment for myself, for clarity, and looking at the work that I've done and the work and how it's impacted people and doing something totally different. So in the space that I'm in, I think that rest is almost like a fourth option, unfortunately. But when I am, taking trips and vacations, I do try to live it up as much as possible. But I cannot lie to my people. I will still be some way connected, not detached, but connected to making sure things are, happening. I recall a moment in an incident when it was a few years ago, and it happened. I was visiting my daughter in Houston, And this is when Houston, out of all places, had a total snowstorm, right? And everything was shut down. And, we were living out of a hotel for 3 days without water, without heat, and all these other things. But my community, in a sense of when I was in distress, had a moment where, unfortunately, a beautiful young baby girl was killed. And because a lot of our community don't know a reliable source to reach out to, of course, family reached out to me, and I automatically, in my distress, on my quote unquote vacation, got on what I needed to get on, got to the business at hand to get this family some healing, some justice, and bring the villain in this moment to justice. So this is a kind of thing that, when we're even, I believe sometimes us, our community, the community heroes that are on this line, even when we're detached, we're still attached in so many ways, because I couldn't look at myself in a mirror had I not picked up the phone, had I not got with the mom, if they had called and reached out to me and I said, yo, I'm on vacation. Yo, I'm freezing myself. I ain't got no water or no heat. I'm driving on in the car trying to keep a charge on my phone. I deal with it when I get home. I just felt compelled to be there when necessary. And that's just kind of where I'm at with my rejuvenation and with my rest.
Appreciate y'all. I know Velma's gonna take the next question, but I just want to say, man, I need to step my beard game up. Like y'all
Hey
shaming me
man.
here.
Hey man, I'm fresh out the shop, baby. Fresh out the shop, baby.
Hey, it's looking pretty good too, I must say myself.
I'm just
Thank
so
you.
thank you.
That's so good. All of you work in different ways within the community and to support people. And I know that, really in many ways, all of you are there to support and to reach out. I mean, and young people, especially at this particular time, or people in general, their families in general, also need that support. But how do you do it? I mean, in the sense of many of you have done it in different ways and have come to this work in different ways. I would like to find out or just share with the community some of the elements that you are doing with community and with youth, because I think it is, I would love that youth have you three to look for you. Actually, all four of you, because I'm gonna put you in this group too. Each of you, for youth to see, Black men of prominence who are really serving their families, their communities, and their people. And that is inspiring. And so we want to put and invite young people on that journey to do this as well, because it has to keep going for generations to come. So just in terms of the work that you do with young people, talk a little bit more about that in terms of engaging them. And so, yes.
Can I,
Brother Bailey?
Yeah, I want to also share really quickly in my listening, I was synthesizing what everybody had to say. And as we guide this conversation, I want to unfold this attribute of rest. And Barry, while I have a very deep love for you and understanding of how you're connected to the community, rest is our physical state, but also our mental state, right? And I'll speak from this perspective. Grief has taught me a whole lot more about love than romance ever could. And one of the things grief forced me to kind of sit with are, one, my feelings, but also that part of grief where the brain is trying to reconcile a different reality. So I've had moments where my body was provided the opportunity to rest because there was nothing else to do, but my mind was not at rest, trying to imagine different realities than the one that I'm in. And then on the inverse, sometimes our bodies are busy according to the schedule, but the work is rewarding and fulfilling, so it doesn't drain you. And and your mind is able then to achieve this rest because the work is satisfying, right? So the rest is kind of a nuanced discussion. And particularly with my work with young people, I just want to own and name, I was in education consecutively for about 13 years before 2019, when my wife and I experienced a double transition of our firstborn. So the daughter you see me tending to, and the reason why I prioritize her the way I do, is because my wife and I have also experienced the loss of our firstborn. But I name this to say, I was recently in the community and I saw some of my elementary and middle school students who are now high school students, okay? And one of those high school students just won a state championship at Oakland High. And I got to interface with the community, and I was so pleased the way my young people embraced me. There was some level of, I wouldn't identify it as guilt, but I recognize that I have not been as present over these past few years as they've known me to be. Something profound happened. They had the wisdom and the heart capacity to hug me with the embrace I needed, as many of them have now grown in height, in stature, in physical attributes. And that moment of belonging really defined for me how important it is to train up our young people with that capacity to see, to feel, to understand, to be the healers. They will grow and they will hold us in the work. I'm at the intersection right now where I'm experiencing them holding space for me. But in addition to that, we have literature. We hold a men's wellness fellowship that is open to 13 and up. And it's been really fascinating to see these young people come out in community to discuss feelings, right? Making capacity for feelings. So the intersection, I'm still working and serving the young people through soul affirmations and the men's wellness fellowship. But I just want to name that I experienced the day where they embraced me the way I needed to be embraced. And it was powerful.
And I just want to lift up and thank you for bringing that to light, Brother Bailey, and really harnessing on that particular topic, because I experienced some grief over the last year myself, actually double grief, the loss of relationship and the loss of my brother. And what really held me during that time was the love of community. And after my brother had passed away, when we returned home from the hospital, there were over 100 people at our household. And it was like that for weeks on end, the love that was pouring in from different parts of the community. And I was just amazed, and our family was just amazed. And we were just sitting with that. And I was like, I told him, I'm like, wow, the amount of love that came in. And one of my staff members looked at me and said, no, that's the love you gave out coming back to you, because you've held so much grief in this community. Now this community is holding you. And I was like, wow, because like you said, brother, like I got some gifts from some of my students, who can connect. And I was like, man, that's just put me in a different space, because at first with that type of grief, I was like, wow, how do I go back and serve a community that took something from me? And when that community embraced me the way they did, I was like, wow, this is what it means to be in beloved community. This is what it means to give love and have love given back to you. So like you, Bailey, like I'm saying this to my youth, and I'm telling them what to do and this and that, and showing them the guidance. But I remind myself I have to be embodiment of that. And as I told youth over the last couple of years, some of the youth I've had for over a decade, I'm always with you, even when you don't see me, right? But I can't tell you and show without showing you how to live life, right? So taking that time, and, for me, it's just taking the time to actually carve out time, not just for my rest, but to connect in relationship. because I hope to hold one of my own very soon, but I haven't carved the time out to do that. Right. So, I'm showing them healthy ways through my own embodiment.
Yeah.
How to go about grief, how to go about loss, how to go about relationships, how to love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Seen and unseen. So I definitely want to appreciate you for lifting that up, because
Yeah.
beyond time and space, from coast to coast.
Yeah,
I feel this.
Yeah.
I think that in, going directly into, with our young people, for me, what I'm seeing with, the 4 Black men that are here, it's so relatively important more than ever to have real models, not role models. When I say real models, I'm necessarily saying that from that core, from that essence, from you, from that ground up, from that struggle. I often say role models play a role, and they're not really the makeup. You don't really know who they are underneath, and we've seen that so many oftentimes. You know, we thought Tiger Woods was such a great character of man, and then you find out some years later that it was just a role he was playing. So a real model is just, you see what you get. I'm authentic, but my imperfections create my perfections, right? And I think that with so much going on with our kids being subdued by the massive social media and constant characters, that we used to have to worry about in our communities, every once in a while having to worry about them taking space in different avenues, like when we had cable TV and our music. But now every day you're waking up to another character, and a lot of that is happening and playing out firsthand on social media. So our young people need to see more grounded elements, something different, right? Something that they really can achieve. I'm not saying that individuals who are trying to make do in the world that they're negative, but there's more negative prospects that we have in our community than we've ever had before. Am I seeing and visualizing it? Because our kids no longer we no longer can sit there and put the parental discretion and advise, because our kids have phones so they can access anything at any given time. Where before, with a lot of our parents and a lot of the people that groomed us, we would be able to not see certain things until an appropriate time comes for us to see these things. So our kids are totally exposed. So if we as men don't expose a reality that looks different than just constantly being a part of what socially is considered a norm, but what real men look like, what caring looks like, what accountability looks like, what love looks like, what passion looks like, what sorrow looks like, what being humble looks like, right? A real kind of basic characters of men, right? How to take care of your family, how to still take care of your family if you've broken off from your family, how to take care of you, how to take care of people around you. I continue to sit there and say, men like us, we have to put those brothers in the forefront, because it's so necessary, because we're seeing too many things that are allowing our youth to go the other way, right? Because a lot of our young people exist in this idea that I gotta be this way, as I did when I was coming up. I thought this was the only way to be, but I didn't see the alternative. I didn't see a guy that was speaking truth to power, but still looked dope, right? Still was fly, still had a swagger, you know what I mean? Still had responsibilities, but you just like, hey, this dude looked like he just came out of I just saw you on TV or something like that. Like mimicking who they would like to be. And then as well, showing them transition to manhood. Like, this is what it looks like as being a teenager, and then this is what it looks like being a man. How do we change and transform, right? The transition process, I think, for our young men especially, is being even more difficult, because it was difficult when we were coming up at that tender age of 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, especially coming out of high school. If you're not going in the direction of higher education, you don't know what you're going to do. If you're not going and getting a trade, you're kind of like in that moment of like, what and who am I? And crossing that bridge and being able to be a survivor of that, and having some survival remorse from that, because I've seen so many of my colleagues not find their way. It's our due diligence to continue to be stewards of, inviting, our young folk to just walk in our path of greatness. So my idea for it is like to constantly be present and constantly be an example. As my father was an example, I'm from the old school. My father wasn't too much of a nurturer, but what my father did do, he set foundation. So he didn't do too much explaining. He led it by example. So I feel like, our work is not only lead by example, but talk our kids through it as well, giving them the nurturing parts that I start to, create in my first off being a father, having a daughter at 26. Then second off, seeing another young girl that needed that fatherhood and adopting a young girl who's now 29, right? Having this idea that I'm just not only a champion of my community, I'm a champion of my family, my children, and being able to support that and letting our young people see there is a difference between Black men and the others. And without the others is a word I won't use, but there's a difference between them and us.
Thank you all for your response. Vilma, I definitely, as I've been listening to my brothers speak, I definitely have been thinking about your question. I think I speak for all of us when I say a big part of our connection to the youth is a calling. That something bigger than us called us to this place where, we have a great opportunity and responsibility to work with our young people. And as I listen to Brother Kariga, Brother Barry, and Brother Michael speak, I just want to say that I feel even better about the future of our children, and particularly the future of our young men and young Black men and women, because if you have an opportunity to be around these three men, listen to Brother Kariga talk about the vulnerability of grief and being able to interact with his students and receive the embrace from them. That's atypical to what we used to experience in education, right? We used to experience adults not being willing to accept that embrace because they weren't willing to show their vulnerabilities and to show their pain, right? When Brother Michael talks about the community showing up at his house, right? Like it used to be that we would push those folks away and we would tell them like, no, I'm okay. Like I don't, and to receive the love that you gave out, right? It just really encourages me that our youth, and sometimes you have to have these types of conversations because you look at images and you're like, man, like and then you're reminded, no, there are brothers like this, and for each one of these brothers, there's a sister as a counterpart, right? Like there's so many folks who are doing this work and doing it differently, and so I just wanted to uplift you all because I'm truly enjoying this conversation and regretting the fact that we are getting ready to run out of time, man. I could run y'all three back again. If y'all haven't noticed, the chat is blowing up. Y'all got folks in the chat loving this conversation. And trust me, if you are here, we are recording this so that if somebody missed today, you could tell them to go watch the recording. But I want to uplift Sister Jointer's question that she asked in the chat. She said, how do we extend grace and kindness with ourselves? She goes on to say, there is so much to do and we are all doing so much. How do we intentionally practice grace and kindness?
I'm going to drop a link to some media that can help us practice these habits of mind around grace. The podcast that my wife and I host is called Soul Affirmations, and it's based on this literature here that I wrote. And my wife also wrote a toolkit for mothers who are investigating grief's process. So in this work, we have to constantly explore this this concept of, yes, sweetheart, yes. Okay. We have to constantly explore this construct of grace. I want to share an affirmation for that question. This comes from page 46. It reads, I find joy in learning more about myself. Exploring my emotions is an act of self-love. Right? I find joy in learning more about myself. Exploring my emotions is an act of self-love. It is not always easy, but it is necessary. And I recognize that there are conditions that Black folks live in that we often don't get the time as privilege to check on our feelings, right? We're always doing and going and doing and going. But a large part of this work for me is around sustainability. So how do I co-create world? How do I co-create the conditions for us to be well so that these aren't one-off and that Barry is an anomaly, Michael is an anomaly, Joma is an anomaly. Like, I don't want the anomaly effect. We don't need the heroes. We need the conditions to change, so we need less heroes, right? And part of that is investigating ourselves, our thoughts, our feelings, and making room for our emotions. Dave Chappelle said something in a comedy, right? Really quickly. He said, I did something Black men don't have a lot of time to do. I thought about how I feel. And I saw him in person and I brought this up to him. And although it was guys, this comedy, how true it is for so many of us. So one of the things around extending grace is without it, you can't sustain. And without accountability, you can't grow. So I find that there's this ebb and flow dance of moving forward. And I choose to adopt relentless incrementalism. That is how I find grace. Relentless incrementalism. So if the conditions require me to slow down and I cannot make as much progress as I charted for, I know that taking care of my family, taking care of myself is going to aid in the perpetual going forward, even if I have to like chunk the increment differently. So that is some of the tools that I use to practice grace. I'll drop a link to the podcast in the chat. And I also just dropped the album called Legacy Talk Only, using music and media to enhance these conversations, because everybody's not going to pull up to the Zoom to learn this, right? So we have to put it in every form of media. The album is called Legacy Talk Only, and I'll drop a link in there as well. But those
I found it on Bandcamp, but I don't know if that's the link you want to use. Can you also drop a link for the book? You got a couple folks, they want to buy the book yesterday.
Oh yeah. So the book is Bandcamp. We do self-ship. I'll put the links in. I'll do that right now.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And as you say that, I'm thinking of what's that quote? 1,000 sermons to one rap song. And how powerful music is, and it is part of our wellness, right? And for me, it's not always just sitting and being still, for me, and I know Dr. Belmacab, we talked about this a couple months ago. Sometimes it's movement, sometimes it's music. For me, I like to be in community. That is the source of my wellness. Just like our beloved Malcolm's quote, replacing I with we, even illness becomes wellness. I enjoy that, so I create, in a lot of ways, I create the conditions for my wellness, even around my youth. So, even tomorrow, I've a little scheduled time with one of my young, my little man, who's not so little anymore. But we're going to the courts and we're playing ball. That feeds me, but also we're connection that's feeding us, and that connection is just helping us build. So there's still an embodiment there. I'm getting some joy out of it for myself, as well as building with my young beloved. And it's real. For me, grace and kindness comes with authenticity and keeping it 100 with the youth, with myself, with everyone around me. And it's powerful when you can have those brave, vulnerable conversations with youth. I sat down with a young man a few years ago, I know he's nickels and dimes, chasing, fast money. And we sat down and we created like a little plus minus income sheet, based on what I do and based on what you do, because we're chasing nickels and dimes, but here I am and we're making impact while I'm doing this, so we started talking and just breaking down how does money flow, and having real conversations about that, man. Chase your dreams, don't chase the block, and really just having real conversations about it. And what's my retirement plan? What's your retirement plan? What's the longevity of where we are, and just having those real brave conversations with youth, I find is extremely important. It's to pick up off of Dr. Velma's question, as well as the kindness and the grace, but it all starts with me. And as I extend out, I'm creating the conditions for that kindness and that grace to live based on how I'm living.
That's dope. That's a beautiful thought. I feel like what grace for me is understanding that I'm only the spark to create change. Our great brother Tupac Shakur, I remember him saying that, knowing that he probably wasn't going to be able to see the fruits of his labor or his own demise, but understanding he would be a spark. So I just believe that in a sense of grace, I know that I can't do all things, but as I'm here to do things, I'm making sure that I do it in the most excellent manner and the most proficient way possible. And as my brother was talking about, I think grace is always when we do expose our young people, right, to the things that they love, different things that they don't know about, just being prepared or getting prepared for our next college tour. We take out our young people every year for the last 9 years to college tours. And this time we're going to be going to the East Coast HBCU. And last year when we took 10 young people down to Alabama, Tennessee, and Atlanta, that was some of the first time that these young people were able to get on a plane. Some of the first time some of these young people got out of their neighborhood or their comfort zone. Those type of opportunities and watching that, for me, it's some of the most graceful practices, because you're allowing, your sacrifices to create opportunities for others who might have had obstacles before to get to these places. And so they can see themselves in a different capacity. So I gracefully love to move in that position, to be able to watch my young people grow. And, when I'm participating in it, it's not work to me. It's moment. To be honest, with some of my most peaceful times and safe times is when I'm taking some of these young people outside of all of our comfort zones, outside of the work area, where we're connecting and building in a different way. So just thinking about the excitement for some of these kids. We're taking 13 kids this year, and the opportunity that's going to be created from a lot of these seniors and juniors, and when they go back home, and how their whole mindset was going to shift because someone saw it was necessary to expose them. That's grace for me, just being that spark to create that change and opportunity for our kids. So a lot of that time, grace is just spending and opening doors for our youth.
I want to just add to that. It gets intimidating trying to come behind y'all,
brother. You got it, dog. You got it.
But let me say, for me, grace and kindness begins with embracing the expectation of imperfection, and let me explain that a little bit more. I realized when my daughter was in high school that despite me being an educator, despite me, traveling the country, helping families and young people as it relates to the issues surrounding their education. I came home one time and from a trip helping a family in DC to my daughter with failing grades on her report card. And I was trying to reconcile why I was having such difficulties being an amazing educator for my own child. And one of the things that I realized was the grace and kindness that I was extending to my students, I wasn't extending to my daughter, because for my daughter, I had an expectation of perfection. And for my students, I had an expectation of imperfection. Like in my mind, I was like, my daughter has me, so she should be perfect. Whereas for other families, I was like, well, they don't have me. And so like, I'm giving them all this grace and kindness that I wasn't extending to my daughter. And it made me ask the question, why? It also made me look at myself and ask if I'm doing the same thing of myself. Am I expecting perfection for me to such a degree, right? Because when I was honest with myself, it wasn't that I was upset that my daughter wasn't doing well in school. I was upset that her not doing well in school would make me look less than perfect. How can I be this doctor who is this educator that is able to help so many different families, and my own child is not excelling in the way that everybody expected her to excel? I looked at her as disrupting the perfection that I was working to build. And because of that, I wasn't extending grace and kindness to her or myself. And when I began to understand that, that's when I began to say, I need to have an expectation of imperfection, because none of us are perfect. And if I understand that I'm not perfect and that there will be opportunities and times that I do fall a little bit short, then I can forgive myself, right? And give myself another opportunity, because new beginnings each day. And that's really how I got to this place of grace and kindness, right? And so now it started with her, you know what I'm saying? It started with me looking at her and apologizing to her and saying to her, like, I apologize for putting unfair expectations on you. It must hurt to see your dad show grace and kindness to other young people and not extend that same grace and kindness to you. So let me start by, removing some expectations that were unrealistic, apologizing, and then everything that I started doing with my daughter, it was beginning from a place of kindness and grace, right? I don't say from a place of love, because I've always felt like even when I had those unrealistic expectations, it was coming from a place of love. It was just coming from a misguided place of love, right? And so imperfections for me is how I come to grace and kindness. I know we only have a few more minutes left. Again, I just want to thank y'all for joining us. I'm going to defer to my colleague, Dr. Cobb, to really give the last questions and take us home. But gentlemen, Brother Michael, I hope I get opportunity offline to just connect with you and learn more about the work that you're doing. And to, Brother Barry and Brother Kariga, man, I can't wait to give you all an embrace the next time I see you. I really appreciate y'all showing up for our Toro community today. Dr. Cobb?
Can I just say one quick thing before we go into that? Just the idea of perfection as it relates to grace. I heard this the other day from a talk, and Beloved said, I'm not a mold, but I'm a customized piece. I'm fully customizable, right? And those custom pieces that come with me are just may not be fit into that mold or that idea of perfection, but I am customized just the way I am. And I show up in that customized version of I am. So I just want to bring that to light because it changes the scenario of standard, right? And standardized and assemblies, and we're all customized, and when you embrace that, that's you living in that wholeness of who you truly are.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Just
Absolutely.
just really quickly, because the cipher is happening. It's alive right now. I just want everybody to know that this wellness practice is happening because we're co-investigating.
It's happening.
And I love when we get to co-investigate. Affirmation that I want to speak for myself to all of us is another one that I practice these habits of mine because it all can just like really start racing. I have another affirmation in this text that reads, Today, I will be patient with myself. The goal is to be present, not perfect. Today, I will be patient with myself. The goal is to be present, not perfect. When I give myself permission to be present, I can even learn from the imperfections. They can come to make me stronger for the next time, right? So present, not perfect.
That is so wonderful. And it's interesting because there's so many times folks will, you have these programs, and of course, in the effort to kind of do things well, people have, one brother on the program or whatever. I cannot believe that this is a program with 4 brothers who got it going on. I mean, this is it's just fantastic. So if you haven't, and EGM, I want you to do this because I don't sure if I did it right. Please take a screenshot because I really want to have the photo of 4 beautiful Black men. I gotta save that. That can be my screen. So with that said, I am just going to turn it over to our 3 wonderful guests to just give some last reflections and moments, and just share whatever you want to share with people. I think this has been just wonderful. I am so happy with it. And so each of you, just some closing words.
I'll just say this really. Invite yourselves to as many spaces where you get to co-investigate the practice of wellness and sustainability, right? I didn't come here because I had answers. I came here today because I was also seeking balance for myself. And this has been very fulfilling. And to just hear the references that are available is a great reminder in this work. So show up to as many spaces as possible. Show up for yourself, but show up to spaces that practice wellness.
As I was coming on here and driving here, I had a thought come to my mind, about my first home. And then I started thinking, that's not my first home. That's actually my second home. But the home I'm referring to is the home I'm born in, right? My body. And I just invite individuals to be fully present in their bodies, because this is the first home I know. Actually, the second home, I'm sorry. The first home was in my mother's womb. And then the second home was inside this body. And I exist here. And I've been here for 35 years. And this residence is the most important thing to take care of. Right. And I have some amenities, my mental, my thoughts, my heart, my emotions, my breath, and we're all have this capacity of this luxury. And so I return to this space, and to show up in full presence and being fully home while connecting to all of you. So that's, my closing words. And I just do appreciate the beloved brothers on here and Dr. Velma Cobb as well, and the TEL team and crews. And it just shows me the extension of our work is out there, and I'm looking forward to just touching base. Next time I come to the West Coast, I'll make sure to touch in with each and every one of y'all. So I appreciate y'all.
Please tap in. Just Queen, just know that brothers are constantly having these conversations about wellness, mental health, our capacity. I think that we've made it look cool to say, I'm in pain. I'm suffering from something, right? And not in a way where once before you would look crazy. Like someone say they was going to therapy, you'd be like, "What's wrong with you?" You know what I mean? We've made this thing look cool because I think that the emotions of a Black man, if we could target that in a proper way, if we can channel that energy in an appropriate way, so many things would change. I always say to like all my people, we have to use the logic before we use the emotion. Though the emotion is powerful and necessary, sometimes we have to utilize our logic in moments where we feel so distressed, where we feel like all things are coming to an end. Because I've been in that place. I've been in that place where I felt like, my insecurities overrode what my successes were, or how I saw myself, or what I was going to be, because I looked at myself as somewhat of a failure. Again, you going out of high school, you're not really having a pathway. Things that you've constantly tried to do have not been cemented. It's not sustainable. When you find yourself in this entrepreneurial mindset, you don't want to work for somebody, but you find yourself working for somebody. I just tell people to practice the patience. The three core things that we speak upon when it comes to Voice of the Youth, when we talk with our kids, is passion, patience, and consistency. These ideas of being passionate, right, about the things that we want, of the things that we believe in, being patient for your time, for your coming. It's not going to always happen in the way or the timing that we believe, but to be consistent in all the things that you love, right? I told my daughter when she was having a moment in college and she was going through, well, it was in 2014, she was going through a spin, and she was just now going from a senior to now a freshman, losing her seniority, so to speak, of being the big girl on campus and knew everybody, Miss Popular, now adjusting. I told her, I said, yo, you know what? I said, there's two things I did when I was creating or going through the things that I was going through in a moment where I felt like I was in the most distress. Two things I continue to be consistent with. She's like, what was it, Dad? I don't have any time for the riddles. What was it? I said, I continue to be a father consistently, and I never one time ever gave up on the hope of creating what now is Voice of the Youth. And I said to her, had I not, or have I did on any moment stop that, we wouldn't be living the kind of lifestyle that we live right now. And she looked at me like, that's what I needed. And those kind of affirmations and those kind of the ideas of using the examples of the struggles that have eventually created, the successes. As I tell my young people all the time, obstacles create opportunities, right? So find that obstacle is not defeat. Find that obstacle is not the end, but just find the opportunity in the obstacle. As my brother in the obstacle of losing his own, and I remember that moment, he found opportunity to gracefully bless others in grief. And what would have happened if he never found that moment, right? With him and his wife looking at their moment of grief and just casting a way of saying, you know what, we're not going to do anything ever again. We're not, we're just going to hide and just kind of like be in our grief. He created an opportunity in one of the craziest and one of the most defined moments of his life. And that's kind of where I feel and I see the work that we are doing. A lot of Black men are really doing a lot of work with self. And we're really hoping to get more platforms so more people can hear this self work, not this braggadocious, here's my jewelry, how many chicks that I'm dating, here's my car, how you can make money. No, this work about self. Because after all that's said and done, everyone's going to ask you, what kind of legacy have you left? What kind of impact have you made? And not on your own life, not as an individual, but as a collective. And we're not just talking about with family members, we're talking about outside. What are you leaving? And I feel that kind of vulnerability that we're able to share. It's I think that people are catching on, right? People are catching on and seeing that. Black men are still strong, but we do have emotions. Black men are still strong, but we do cry. Black men are still strong. And guess what? I'm not going to kill my brother because he pissed me off. Or I'm not going to take out my sister because she frustrated me in a way. That doesn't take me to be a weak person. I'm still strong. It takes a stronger man to walk away from something that's going to cause grief for not only himself, but so many others. So that's just the kind of impactful words and spirit I feel that we move in when we continue to step into these moments of figuring out, what does healing look like and how we as Black men can come together and speak so candidly like this.
Delma, I'm mad we got to end it, but we got to end it.
I hear you. That is so much. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to let you
Thank
have
you.
the last word. But thanks to all of you. I really appreciate this. And, hey, we might have to have number 2 on this one.
We will see all of you in 2 weeks. Thank you for tapping in. Hi, Kamali.
Say bye-bye.
Y'all have a good one. Thank you.